Great country music singer Loretta Lynn has died, which is sad news from the showbiz world this afternoon. Behind the rhinestones, tour buses, and Opry spotlights, the lives of country stars were messier, stranger, and haunted than we ever thought possible. One such story was told for years by Loretta Lynn, whose brave voice was used in many songs that told the truth. Private, quiet, and completely out of the blue. Inside a room made just for music, full of memories, it took place. Everyone took a moment to think when she finally told them what she had seen. Was it nostalgia, fantasy, or something that the mic couldn't pick up? No matter what it was, it scared her. What did really happen in that room, and why did Loretta speak out at that time? With roots in Butcher Hollow. Loretta Lynn's story starts in Butcher Hollow, a quiet area of Van Lear, Kentucky, where being poor wasn't a phase. That was the norm. It was hard for her to live in a small, one-room shack with 8 other kids. The town was owned by a coal company that pretty much ran everything. Corporate power ruled everyday life. The homes, the general store, and even the cash that was used. Script made it hard for families like the Webbs to get by. Loretta knew what it was like to be hungry from a very young age. As a child, she slept on the floor with her brothers, wrapped in blankets, during the cold Appalachian winters. These events not only made her tough, but they also gave her the determination she would use for the rest of her life. As a child, she also had major health problems that showed her the harsh realities of life in the country. As a child, she had a dangerous ear infection, so doctors drilled holes in her head to protect her hearing. It was a painful, old-fashioned procedure that made her situation even worse. Without being able to pay to stay at the hospital, her mother walked 10 miles every day to be with her daughter. Later, Loretta had to go back to the hospital because of an infection in her leg. This showed once more how thin the line was between life and tragedy. Moments like those, not just physical tests, taught Loretta a lot about being strong and how to fight long before she ever went on stage. It was in these harsh places that Loretta learned to use music as both a haven and a calling. She didn't dream of growing up in Nashville or being famous. His first stage acts were lullabies he sang to his younger siblings on the creaky wooden porchway out in the hollows. Since she didn't have any official training or instruments, she used her voice as her only instrument. It was so strong as it went through the hills that people working in fields nearby would stop and listen to it. This small act of support from a stranger really helped her feel better about herself. Sometimes, the voice didn't sound like someone trying to comfort her. Instead, it sounded like someone trying to change her life. Loretta always stayed close to where she came from. She was proud of how poor she came from and never let her success take away her need to Butcher Hollow. He always came back to his roots in interviews and in the music he made, most notably in Coal Miner's Daughter, which would have a big impact on how people saw him and what he left behind. She never lived her life in glory, even when she was getting lots of gifts and praise. It helped her remember where she came from and how far she had come. But just as her voice was rising above the hills, she was thrown into a part that no girl her age should have to play. A teenage bride. Loretta Lynn became an adult quickly and in a complicated way when she married Oliver Doolittle Lynn at a time when most girls were still going through the stages of puberty. Loretta often said she was married when she was 13, but later records showed she was actually 15. Still very young and not at all ready for what married life is really like. In rural Kentucky in the middle of the 20th century, these kinds of early marriages were common, especially when parents agreed. They weren't perfect, though. Her folks were very against the match. Her mother wouldn't go to the ceremony or sign any papers, and her father didn't get close to Doolittle mentally. These early signs of tension showed what problems Loretta would soon face. This was not at all a happy starting. Starting out, the relationship was full of ups and downs. On the night of their wedding, Doolittle hit Loretta because of a harmless mistake. This was the first of many times that Doolittle would hurt Loretta in the home. A lot of things went wrong in the marriage. Doolittle often drank a lot. He or she went missing for long periods of time and was often unfaithful. Even so, Loretta found an inner power that would shape how people saw her in the years to come. She didn't say anything. She hit back. In interviews, she made it clear that she would hit back if he hit her. She refused to be hurt by anyone. This became a major theme in her songs. It made her familiar to a lot of women who were having similar problems at home. In a strange twist, the guy who caused her so much pain also introduced her to music. Doolittle saw Loretta's ability and wanted to be as good as the women on the radio, so he bought her a $17 guitar and told her she should try singing professionally. She was just a busy young mom, after all. With no chance of becoming famous and little faith in her voice. As the leader, Doolittle also took care of her early appointments and drove her from radio station to radio station. From something that began as his project, Loretta turned it into a main job. Loretta started to take care of her life and work overtime. Her rise in the country music business was also a way for her to gain self-confidence, but she would always acknowledge Doolittle's earlier impact on her life. The complicated nature of their relationship showed up in a completely honest way in Loretta's songs. Hits like Fist City and Don't Come Home A-Drinkin' weren't just general looks at people. They were like song plans for her life with Doolittle. After remembering those painful things, she turned them into loud and clear songs for women everywhere. Loretta stayed married for many years because she wanted to be a good wife, she didn't want to break her kids' hearts, and she believed that even little kids had the right to her love. Being a mother in hard times. Loretta Lynn became a mother very quickly and early in life, and it shaped a lot of her young adult years. By the time she was 22, she had already had 4 kids. Raising a family while dealing with the instability of a marriage was a huge task for little Lynn. Since Loretta's husband was usually working or going on long drinking binges, she did most of the housework and took care of the kids by herself. She washed cloth diapers by hand, carried buckets of water to cook and clean, and ran a home while living alone for most of the time. The family lived on very little, and there was a time when things were really bad. For almost 2 weeks, Loretta and her kids lived off of dandelions. The fact that she went through these terrible things in quiet and with determination shaped how real she was in her songs. Her health also suffered because she was pregnant all the time and didn't get much medical care. After giving birth to her second child, Loretta had 2 miscarriages and then got blood poisoning that could have killed her. She couldn't afford to go to the hospital, so she had to heal at home, away from experts. In the end, she needed an emergency C-section when her third child was born. But since Doolittle was out cutting in the woods and couldn't be reached, Loretta was in the hospital by herself. Drugged, in pain, and without her husband to help her. Her deep empathy and wider range of emotional palettes for writing her powerful songs came from going through hard times that were both physically and emotionally draining. Being a mother and fame were sometimes what kept her grounded and other times what broke her heart. Loretta's twins were born when she started getting more attention for her singing. Even though she was sad at first about the thought of travel with 6 kids, she had to be glad they were here. Being emotionally apart from him hurt her a lot from the start. Betty Sue, her daughter, would tell stories about how her mother's trips abroad caused her a lot of pain, which Loretta would remember all her life. She said more than once that the worst thing about being popular was missing her kids. What a fight! Torment in her heart came out in the form of her eerie voice and song lyrics. Songs that were full of desire, weariness, and fierce motherly love. A lot of Loretta's most famous and controversial music came from the huge emotional weight of being a mother. The Pill, a song that clearly supported women's power over reproduction, told the truth about her life. She was pregnant all the time and felt like she needed to get back in charge. Over 60 radio stations banned the song, but it spoke to the hearts of women everywhere who could relate to Loretta's words. Making music out of pain. The talent of Loretta Lynn didn't come from schooling or professional polishing. It came from a life full of raw, often painful experiences. Unlike many songwriters who made up stories or used tried-and-true industry formulas, Loretta wrote about her own problems, turning them into highly personal music that was easy for anyone to relate to. Don't Come Home A-Drinkin' with Lovin' on Your Mind, her first big hit in 1967, was not a made-up story. It was a sharp look at her relationship with Lynn Doolittle. That the song showed how angry she was that her husband would come home drunk and demanding, a truth that many women in America could relate to. As the first #1 country song by a female solo singer, it caused a cultural shift by showing that many people wanted to hear songs that told the truth from a woman's point of view. With Fist City, she continued to be brave when talking about these kinds of things. The song was angry at a real woman who had been looking at her husband during shows. Loretta didn't use the song to be the quiet, patient wife. Instead, she used it to send a very public message. If you cross the line, bad things will happen. In the past, women in country music were supposed to be shy or sweetly sad. Loretta's refusal to give up was a big deal. Some radio stations were afraid to play the song because of its angry tone, but people loved it. Many women felt a quiet anger in her voice that they had never heard on the radio. Loretta became known as an artist who wasn't afraid to sing what other artists were too shy to say when Fist City went straight to #1. Beyond her first few hits, Loretta's collection became a kind of social record of a woman's life in America in the middle of the 20th century. It was illegal for songs like The Pill and Rated X to talk about things like birth control and divorce. People were not allowed to play these songs, and they caused a lot of debate. But the fact that they were so popular showed that Loretta's brave honesty struck a strong chord with people. Not only did she host, she also gave them approval. She gave women a way to be angry, confident, tired, and proud through song. Her words saved my life. They gave her fans a voice that knew not only their happiness, but also their daily pain and anger. She didn't make suffering look cool. She brought it to light and demanded that people hear it. Not fire. But when the Grand Ole Opry turns 100 years old in 2025, water runs through it. By that time, Loretta's fame as a truth singer was already very famous in the music world. Don't Come Home a Drinkin' and The Pill were honored with tribute shows for both their catchy songs and the huge effect they had on culture. She was seen as the one who made it safe for young artists to tell their own stories. She left a legacy of authenticity in country music, not just being at the top of the charts. In this way, Loretta Lynn changed what a country song could be by turning private pain into public art. She also left behind a body of work that was as strong as the woman who made it. Jack Benny Lynn's death was very sad. In 1984, Loretta Lynn went through the hurt that no parent ever wants to go through. She lost a child. Jack Benny Lynn, her son, died in a terrible accident on the family ranch in Hurricane Mills, Tennessee. He was only 34 years old. Jack was riding his horse and tried to cross the Duck River, which is a known dangerous spot. He may have been thrown off his horse and hit his head on a rock, which caused him to drown. It wasn't until later that Jack's body was found, but the horse was waiting patiently by the river. Loretta was in the hospital in Illinois at the time of the accident because she was so tired. It was Doolittle Lynn's job to tell them the terrible news. Loretta fell down in tears and was taken to the hospital again, which shows how shocked he and others were at the time. Jack was often called Loretta's best child, but not because she loved him more. It was because the two of them had a special bond. He had his father's wild side and was known for going to parties, but in the months before he died, Jack had started to settle down and show his family that he loved them. Loretta was happy with how he had changed and looked forward to the future. She thought that his death was both sad and unnecessary because it ended what she saw as the start of a better time for him. Later, Loretta said she was uneasy about what was going on and sometimes said she thought something about the accident didn't feel right, but nothing was ever proven beyond the official account. However, Loretta did not hide under the covers even though she was in a lot of pain. She put everything she had into her work and used the music room as a way to ease her stress. She couldn't put out a single song that talked about him directly. She later made music, though, that was soaked in that mood. A softer voice, one that thinks more deeply, and more sadness. Over the next few years, interviews always came back to Jack. Loretta talked about how missing this special man haunts her. She talked about the constant throb that wouldn't go away, her guilt over being away when he died, and the heavy quiet that surrounds the ranch where he used to walk. Fans and friends saw her as more powerful than them all because of how she dealt with personal loss. When the Grand Ole Opry turned 100 years old in 2025, Jack's memory was quietly but powerfully present in all of the honors to Loretta. Her loss had become part of her public story. She was a mother who was grieving behind a web of successful jobs and brave songs. The tragedy made Loretta more real than any award or hit song ever could. The people who love country music who are honoring her at the Opry are celebrating more than just her singing achievements. No one can understand how to be dedicated to a cause while going through such unbearable pain. It takes a lot of strength to keep singing. That's what Loretta is being praised for. One of the most important things about her memory is that she was able to survive such loss without giving up who she is through her work. Things seemed to be getting back to normal when something strange walked into the studio and stopped her in her tracks. Loretta's last meeting with Johnny Cash. There were many strange things that happened to Loretta Lynn, but one in the last few years of her career stood out. As she worked on her Grammy-nominated album Full Circle in 2016 at Johnny Cash's cabin studio in Hendersonville, Tennessee, she had an experience that shook her to the core. She stopped singing in the middle of one of Johnny's songs, looking startled. Afterward, she told the people there that she saw a guy in a gray suit walk in. Someone she was sure looked just like Johnny Cash. Some people may have been suspicious because the room wasn't well lit. Loretta, on the other hand, responded right away and honestly. She didn't say she imagined it or romanticize it as a sign. She thought it was true. The place held even more emotional and historical weight, which made this moment even more important. Johnny built the studio himself in 1978, and it had become a place where both well-known artists and new ones could come together to work. Loretta had a strong bond with the Cash family. She looked up to Johnny and June Carter Cash for a long time and worked closely with their son, John Carter Cash, who produced her later records. Seeing the ghost while recording a song about Johnny made the whole thing even more mysterious. Loretta thought the experience was more of a visitation than a scary thing. It was like a nod in the direction of literature from a fellow hero who had been in the room the whole time. Loretta had a lot of experience with ghosts and other strange things before this moment. People said that her home in Hurricane Mills, Tennessee, was cursed, supposedly by her. She had a lot of stories, all of which were true. They ranged from ghostly Civil War soldiers to shadowy figures appearing on rooftops. She even wrote songs about her experiences, like This Haunted House. Instead of seeing the supernatural as something strange, she incorporated it into her stories and narratives. In her speech, Loretta said that the events were normal and never made a big deal out of them. She didn't care much about what other people believed. There was no question in her mind about what she had seen, felt, and heard over the years. This willingness to be open to the unknown added another layer to who she was. A fascinating mix of a real country woman and a magical storyteller. During the 2025 Grand Ole Opry Centennial, the noise of ghosts in the studio with Loretta came back. People who had worked with her and remembered her spirit remembered it with fondness. This wasn't meant to scare you. Instead, it showed that country music has deep ties that go beyond time, place, and maybe even death. By honoring Loretta and Johnny together, the Opry recognized the musical achievements that made their presence on sacred ground unforgettable but short-lived. That day in the studio wasn't a ghost story for Loretta because she went with her gut and told the truth. An old friend said goodbye for the last time. Working together and how music changes over time. Over the course of her career, Loretta Lynn showed that age and fame were not barriers to change. In 2004, she worked with Jack White, the rock lead singer of the White Stripes, on the groundbreaking record Van Leer Rose. This was one of the most striking examples. Many of Loretta's peers had left the spotlight by that time, but she shocked everyone in the business by putting out an honest, powerful record that she wrote all by herself. White. She was able to connect with a younger, rock-oriented crowd without changing who she was by not being a mentor but a guide. As a result, they made a collection of songs that were strongly rooted in country music but had a modern edge and sense of urgency. 2 Grammy Awards were given to the project, which reminded everyone that Loretta's voice, both in real life and in her work, was still very important. When these two groups worked together, respect was key. Jack White didn't try to update or improve Loretta. He took the raw feeling in her stories and put them together in a way that sounded like blues, garage rock, and Appalachian folk. Portland, Oregon was a hot duet that turned out to be the crown prize. It just showed that when you value authenticity, it doesn't matter what type it is. The record was praised by critics for being so sincerely honest, and brought her to the attention of a new group of fans who would not have known that she was coal miner's daughter but now see her as an artistic force that refuses to fade into memories. In her 80s, Loretta's desire to work with others only grew stronger. When her 46th studio record, Still Woman Enough, came out in 2021, she made a strong and happy statement with the help of her daughter Patsy Lynn Russell and John Carter Cash. Reba McEntire, Carrie Underwood, Tanya Tucker, Margot Price, and other strong women in country music were on the record. These collaborations were like handshakes between generations. Loretta reached back to help the women who were following the road she helped make, which is a great example of women's empowerment. Still Woman Enough, Loretta Lynn's 46th studio record, came out in March 2021 and was a strong statement of her continued relevance. At age 88, Loretta was not only reflecting on her groundbreaking career, but also reaffirming that her voice would live on in country music. The record was a tribute to the women who helped shape the genre. It was produced by her daughter Patsy Lynn Russell and John Carter Cash. 3 generations of female country stars came together on the title track, which also featured Reba McEntire and Carrie Underwood. The song sent a message of strength and unity. The new mixes of modern collaborations and reimagined classics in these records built a bridge between the past and the present. Songs like You Ain't Woman Enough with Tanya Tucker and One's on the Way with Margot Price were given new life, which was important for reviewing old themes in new ways and in modern settings. Instead, Loretta used these songs to start conversations with people from different groups. In her job, she wasn't an icon. Instead, she was a guide who showed how far women have come in the country music business and how far they still have to go. Personal stories were also very important to the album's effect. Coal Miner's Daughter read out loud an incredibly honest account of Loretta's childhood, and My Love was written in honor of her late husband. For the Carter family, Keep on the Sunny Side was an ode to their musical history. Because of these things, she became a legend in the country and a culture historian. In 2025, when the Grand Ole Opry turns 100 years old, Still Woman Enough will be remembered as one of the most important albums of her late career. It showed that her voice could still move people, both physically and symbolically. Loretta's last years and her legacy. Even though her health was getting worse, Loretta Lynn continued to show the strength and fire that had defined her whole life in her last years. She had a stroke at home in Hurricane Mills, Tennessee, in 2017 that left her unable to do many things. After what happened, she had to cancel future tour dates and put off the release of her very important album, Wouldn't It Be Great? She fell and broke her hip in early 2018, just a few months after she had been better. This made her situation even worse. Many people her age would have chosen to retire and be quiet, but Loretta stayed focused on her singing and refused to let her body decide the end of her story. The same drive that got her from Butcher Hollow to world fame also drove her to keep making things and connecting with other people. Loretta was very active online and in the music community while she was getting better. She shared information on social media all the time, showing people what she did in her daily life and showing that she was still funny and strong. Even though she had trouble moving around, she kept recording music with the help of her family and close collaborators. Not only was her 2021 album Still Woman Enough a successful return, but it was also a message. The record. Her last gift to the country music world was a song about sisters and strength. It reminded everyone that even though she was in her late 80s, she was still able to tell a story with something important to say. She passed away peacefully in her sleep on October 4, 2022, at her favorite ranch in Hurricane Mills, Tennessee. She was 90 years old. Something amazing in American music is coming to an end because of this event. In public, her family spoke about her with both pride and sadness, and they asked for space to mourn. So the ranch, where Loretta had gone to get away and work on her art projects decades before, became the place where she was laid to rest. It was a fitting end to a life that was very much rooted in the Appalachians. She was laid to rest near Doolittle, who had been her husband and two of their children. She was buried above the ground, where she had drawn many of her themes and found peace. She has been alive a lot longer than her songs. By being honest, brave, and refusing to fit in, she broke down barriers about what it meant to be a lady in country music. Women, working-class families, and anyone else on the edges who had been quiet for a long time could hear her songs. She did make hits, but she was much more than that. She was the first person in her field to be brave enough to tell the truth when it was usually safer to tell lies. Then, in the middle of country music's biggest party, Loretta's voice came back stronger than ever. In honor of a legend. The Grand Ole Opry celebrated a huge achievement in 2025. Its 100th anniversary, and a salute to one of its most famous members, Loretta Lynn, would not be complete without her. Even though she had died not long ago, her spirit was clearly there during the whole event. Loretta's impact was honored for the whole evening on May 13 as part of the Opry 100 Honors series. At the event, her family, old co-workers, and modern stars who had been shaped by her were all together. Her sister Crystal Gale, granddaughter Emmy Russell, and the duo Twitty and Lynn, which was made up of her and Conway Twitty's grandkids, gave some of the most moving performances. They carried on a musical tradition that she had helped create. The honor event was more than just a show. Music brought people of different ages together to talk. Opry members like Martina McBride, Harley Pierce, and Ashley McBride took the stage to honor Loretta's songs while also giving them a more modern twist. Many of these artists had publicly said that Loretta was an inspiration to them, and they stressed how important her music was still today. They didn't do a show to honor her. They put on a show to show that her voice, message, and bravery are still heard loud and clear in the country today. Every show was a reminder that Loretta didn't just make hits. She made a plan for how to use a song to tell the truth. Some of the most emotional parts of the show happened when Reba McEntire paid tribute to both Loretta Lynn and Patsy Cline, another country star. First, she sang an eerie version of Sweet Dreams of You by herself. Then she sang You Ain't Woman Enough to Take My Man. It was Loretta's signature song of defiance and power. There was a plan to connect Cline and Lynn's legacies. Both of them were women who broke down barriers, and the Opry stage would respect their memory by bringing out the spirit of their trailblazing personalities. The 100th anniversary party was more than just a way to honor a famous sight. It was meant to be a record of how Loretta Lynn's work affected art and society. For Opry, her presence had always been bigger than life, and this tribute lovingly caught that presence into the future. Thanks for seeing. Give this video a thumbs up if Loretta's story moved you or changed the way you think about country music. Tell me what you think in the comments. Do not forget to subscribe to get more stories behind the myths. Hey, don't leave yet. To keep going, tap the next movie on your screen. Don't miss it.